Ryan Poles has been a good GM as far as getting talent. He has done a good job of drafting, making trades, getting talent. He made a crucial error. He is the one that okayed and decided to keep Eberflus.
Well, I mean, everybody has a bad Tuesday. Welcome in. Week 11 is in the books, and oh boy, am I happy. We'll talk about why I'm happy later on in the show. We can't
see it over your shoulder. No reason to know.
Look, it's a secret right now, and I'd rather not talk about it, okay? You can edit this out if you would like, but it's still going to be there no matter what. I'm Ryan. This is Tristan. This is Week 11, and we are back. We took off last week, and we are so happy that we're able to be back with you this week, but also the slate of games this week, they were actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I feel like they were better than last week anyway. Like, if there was a week to miss, last week was a decent week to miss, I guess.
I actually agree. It wasn't planned. We try not to do that, but we ended up getting behind, and then we're like, hey, let's just push it instead of trying to rush and get something out, push the week.
And let's just say, if we get more subscribers and we start getting paid to do this, we won't miss any weeks.
Oh, quite the contrary. We do it more than once a week. But,
Unfortunately, we also have lives, and we don't get paid to do this. It's just a very expensive hobby at this point. But hey, without further ado, let's jump in to the Week 11 games.
We're going to start with the biggest matchup of the week. There's no sense in delaying. I know you're excited to talk about it, but so am I. The Buffalo Bills defeated the Kansas City Chiefs 30-21. The Bills are still alive for the 1 seed. They hand Kansas City their first loss since Christmas of last year, 2023. The Chiefs have not allowed a team to score 28 or more points in the last 30 games. That's how good this defense has been, and the Bills hit that mark. They hit over 28. They hit 30 points. Ryan, you are the Bills fan. Let me just ask you, and you can take it where you want. How are you feeling about Buffalo after this win?
I'm feeling really, really good, man. I don't want to overhype this, but this is a monumental win for the Bills. And I know the score was pretty close, and every time, without surprise, anytime these two teams face each other, it's going to be a matchup. Almost every time an instant classic. I wouldn't say it went that far today. But I do feel like the Bills were in pretty solid control most of the game, even though the score, doesn't really represent that as much. What I take away from this is, obviously, this is one step closer to the 1 seed. We need that. We want that really bad.
If they lost this game, they were out. They were out of it,
completely
in my
out.
opinion, because you would have been too far behind to climb back.
And what I was really thrilled about is the Bills were without Keon Coleman today, and Curtis Samuel stepped up. Shakir, I wouldn't even say he stepped up. He just played his usual part.
Yeah, Curtis Samuel, this was the first game he's had that was meaningful all year.
Correct. Mari Cooper had that great sideline pass. That was terrific. I would like to see him utilized more in the game, but it is his first week back since he played one game. Then he was out for like 3 weeks, and now he's back. So this is essentially ground zero for me. He's got to develop that relationship with Josh Allen.
Josh Allen tried to... The pivotal play. I mean, 2 receptions, 55 yards, and they were big plays both times.
Correct. Yeah, if there's a man to step up in crunch time, Cooper is that guy.
You might have felt this way before. And I know it's the regular season game, and I'm not saying this as a Chiefs fan. Any game's meaningful, but it's not like it's new that the Bills beat them in the regular season. Other teams can't. The Bills do. The Bills can beat them in the regular season, and then in the playoffs, obviously, we'll see what happens when we get in January. I want to focus on this. Do you feel like after this performance, as a Buffalo fan, because you actually, if anyone's new to the channel, first off, welcome. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, tell your friends about it. You're actually harder on the Bills than most Bills, but we get so many comments of this guy's a hater. It's like, no, he's just, a pessimist when it comes to the Bills. Do you think they are one of the best teams in the league? Do you think they can win the Super Bowl this year? Maybe you thought it before this game, but does this reassure you?
Yeah, so before this game, I was a little skeptical about saying that and coming out on a public platform and announcing that.
Yeah.
This was that milestone game to me. This was the game where I really could see what the Bills were made of this year. And every year, I don't care if you say, oh, the Bills always do this. They always beat the Chiefs during the regular season, and then in the playoffs, they choke. Whatever. You can say that all year long, all day long. I don't care. It still takes a wholehearted effort to beat the Chiefs in the regular season every year. So take nothing away from that. this is the milestone game where I was like, okay, if the Bills play good this game, they play a full 60-minute football game, end to end, look great on offense and defense, this is the game where I say, yeah, the Bills are one of the best teams in the NFL this year. And winning this game going into the bye is huge.
Oh, see, I actually forgot they had the bye next week.
Yeah, so they have the bye next week, and hopefully, on the flip side of that, we get Milano back, possibly.
I feel like we've been saying that for 3 years now, though, to be fair, with Milano.
Keon Coleman will hopefully come back. And look, we're going to need a fully healthy team for the gauntlet that we have for the rest of the season, because after the bye, we come back to the 49ers, who have been playing a little below average here lately. But then we have the Rams, the Lions, the Patriots, the Jets, and the Patriots. So the Lions is that game I'm circling, right? Like, that's the game that I think everybody wants to see,
right?
Because it could come down at that point to these may be the two best teams in the NFL, period, by that point.
It could be a Super Bowl preview. It absolutely could be. And we know the Bills are always good, but like, and whatever you think about the Chiefs or not, like, it is kind of a measuring stick game. It's the back-to-back Super Bowl champions who were undefeated. They hadn't lost a game since Christmas, literally almost a year straight without losing a game. One of the longest streaks in NFL history, I believe. So you want to see, like, how do we stand up to them? Like, and I think in all of the games we've seen Buffalo versus Kansas City, this rivalry, because it is a rivalry, and me and you have obviously been following it, I think this is the most impressive performance Buffalo has played against Kansas City, even more impressive than the 13-second game, because of what you said earlier. And I just want to give the Bills flowers, but it felt like they controlled the whole ball game. Now, as a Chiefs fan, I always think the Chiefs are going to win, because that's just what we do. You know, they hang around, then at the end they find a way to win. It really, in the second half, it just felt like the Bills were controlling it, and the Bills were aggressive. Let's look at the box score real quick just to show you. Pass yards, obviously Josh Allen, way more, 262 to 181. Rush yards, Bills ended with more, 104 to 78. Allen's legs really helped that. Most of the game, the Chiefs were controlling the ground game. I mean, Buffalo's ground game was non-existent other than the goal line touches. Third down conversions, the Bills were fantastic, 9 for 15. Chiefs 50%, 5 for 10. Red zone, Chiefs 3 for 3, 3 for 4 for Buffalo, 2 turnovers for Kansas City, 1 for Buffalo. Pretty even, but when you look at the time of possession, 25 minutes for Kansas City, 34 for Buffalo. Tony Romo mentioned this on the broadcast. Buffalo did what Kansas City does to teams. Kansas City goes on long drives, 10, 12, 13-play drives, and keep the defense on the field and wear them down. This is the first time all year I've really seen the Chiefs defense just look out of sorts by the time we got into the fourth quarter. There were more wide open guys in this game than I can remember against the Chiefs defense in the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the first games where the Chiefs have let a team score like 28 or more points on them.
Oh yeah, they haven't given up more than like 20, 21 points all year.
Yeah, that's one thing I will credit the Buffalo Bills today is offensively and defensively, they shook it up. Like, they threw some really dynamic play calls out on both sides of the ball, especially on the defensive side. But Joe Brady had an answer to Spag's defense today. Like, he would always shake it up. He would always throw something out at him. And then when all that failed, Josh Allen would just take off and run. And like Chris Jones, man, if it was a tackle every time he touched Josh Allen, it would be like 8 sacks. But Josh Allen just found a way to get out of the pocket and to make a positive play every time.
Another thing I just want to credit Buffalo, and they mentioned this on the broadcast, at the end of the game, when Buffalo had it to go up 2 scores, they stayed aggressive. And we've seen so many times, and Romo mentioned this too, where Buffalo kind of takes their foot off the gas and it's like, oh, it's okay, we'll punt it back. No, they kept throwing it. They weren't running the ball with James Cook, because I know you look and you're like, oh, James Cook, 2 touchdowns. James Cook couldn't do anything. The Chiefs defense stuffed the run. They've done that all year. You can't run on the Chiefs defense. I mean, I don't think Buffalo, other than Josh Allen, would have had many rushing yards at all. And that's obviously a different category. They stayed aggressive. Buffalo put their foot on Kansas City's throat and said, no, we're not giving Mahomes the chance to beat us this time. We're going to put the game away when we have the chance. And that's what's been missing the past few times with Buffalo facing Kansas City. They'll get in a position to win, and they just won't close it out. And that's what so many teams do against the Chiefs. This was a complete performance by Buffalo, and that defensive coordinator also, wow. Like, this was probably the most impressive performance from that Buffalo defense all year. The Chiefs offense, they had their opportunities. Xavier Worthy not getting his foot down, the Mahomes interception on the first drive. Kansas City, I think, got away from the run a little. They were averaging like 5 yards a carry in the first quarter. It just seemed like Kansas City didn't capitalize on the opportunities as much as Buffalo did.
Yeah, 2 accolades I want to throw out. So this is the 4th best 11-game start in franchise history for the Bills. So that's something. And the top 3 were actually pre-2000. So pretty much in our lifetime, this is the best start to an 11-game series that the Bills have ever had. So kudos to them on that. And then also, Josh Allen tied Cam Newton today for, and I'm going to try to get all these right, quarterback to have 200-plus passing yards, 50-plus rushing yards, a touchdown in the air, and a touchdown on the ground. 9 games he's done that now. Tied it with Cam Newton, and then Russell Wilson has, I think, 6 or 7 games. So it's pretty astonishing to see where the Bills were earlier this season, preseason, and especially last year where we were calling, me too, was calling for Sean McDermott to be fired, and the Bills were done. They need to rebuild.
This was the rebuild year.
And now it looks like it's possibly a Super Bowl year. Who knows?
I told you I thought they were going to compete this year. I did.
Yeah.
Now, I thought they were going to be good and in contenders this year, even though it was a rebuild year. I agreed with you. Like, we can rehash the McDermott thing another time. I don't even want to get into that right now. Here's the thing. I want to say 2 points. One, I think this game firmly cements Josh Allen as the MVP frontrunner now. When you combine it with the fact that Lamar Jackson had his worst game of the year, looked truly awful. Josh Allen has had one terrible game this year, that Houston game where he was like 9 for 30. But Jared Goff had his bad 5-interception game. It feels like Josh Allen took the keys over and said, I'm going to drive for a little bit and be the MVP frontrunner. Kind of like last year where we had a couple guys back bouncing forth. As long as Josh Allen doesn't have a bad performance or slip up or really, just piss the bed, then I think the MVP is his. And he doesn't have an MVP yet. So I would actually really like to see him get it. He's playing fantastic. This is the game right here. The Bills went on a 10-play, 83-yard touchdown drive to go up 2 scores, okay? That's when they had the illegal pick play. But, they were probably going to score anyway. Seriously, I'm just kidding.
That play did not decide the game.
No, they were going to score anyway. It was an illegal pick. You think the Chiefs were going to stop them? They let them go 83 yards, but they're going to stop them that final 6. No. I was saying that to you because like all the people that are like, Chiefs always get all the calls. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Not tonight.
Anyway, I thought it was fair game, though. Kansas City immediately answered. They went 10 plays, 70 yards to get back in the game. Buffalo led 23-21 with 8 minutes left after that second Noah Gray touchdown. And then that's where I talked about Buffalo just putting their foot on the throat. A game-winning touchdown drive with that Josh Allen run. The run on that, I think it was 4th down, wasn't it?
It was 4th and 2, I believe.
Right. So instead of kicking the field goal, they're like, nah, we're going for the jugular. Because if we kick the field goal, which is what they've done in the past, Mahomes is going to get the ball back and he's going to beat us. Give Josh Allen a chance to win it, not Bass. And he had one of his most impressive runs of the season. It could end up being like the defining MVP moment of the regular season. When it happened, obviously I was dejected. My wife was watching it with me, and I said, when that run happened, I said, holy shit, that was amazing. I was just excited because it was such an incredible play. So congratulations to you, my friend. Congratulations to the Buffalo Bills. They earned it.
Thank you. And we've exhausted the Bills, so I would like to just touch on the Chiefs because they do need to be acknowledged, right? So a couple of questions for you. First question is, with this being your first defeat of the year, is there some type of relief from holding that mantle and not being now there's no undefeated teams, right? So now you're a team that has pretty much had a reset. The Bills pressed y'all's reset button today. You're not undefeated. You don't have to, put on a show as the undefeated team anymore. You almost lost it to Denver last week. This week you did lose it to the Bills. So is it a relief? Like, is the locker room, you think, a little bit, they walk a little bit lighter now, not have as much pressure and anxiety staying the undefeated team in the NFL?
The short answer, yes. Obviously, you want to win the game. You want to beat Buffalo. Yeah. You're not like, glad we lost that game. But to your point, yes, because one, I don't think anyone's going undefeated. I just don't think that's happening. The Chiefs have to lose. And it was getting to the point where I was like, man, I kind of hope we go ahead and have a loss at some point because I remember last year the Chiefs were bad. They lost on Christmas to the Raiders, like got blown out. And then they came back around. Like, it seems every year the Super Bowl winner, for the most part, like 80% of the time, the team that wins the Super Bowl is the team that really gets it together, gets hot, and starts rolling late. We've seen a lot of teams, recently the Steelers, the Cardinals start out 9-10-0 and then completely fizzle down the stretch. I'm not worried about Kansas City fizzling down the stretch because it's Reed and Mahomes, but I do think it gives you a bit of a reset. It just kind of takes that off of you because when you're undefeated, especially once you get to like week 8, week 9, it's like, oh, every week, like, oh, could they do it? Could they get close? So it is glad to just have the undefeated thing over with.
So, and also, I want to congratulate Kansas City. The fact that you guys were undefeated up until this point with all you've been through this year is astonishing. Like, it is absurd that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have single-handedly worked through all these adversities, injuries, games where it's been really close. I mean, you guys play close games all the time. That's just what you do. It's in your DNA. That's never going to change, I don't believe. As long as Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid is there, they're going to find a way to always play really close games. But for that to happen and to stay undefeated to this point is amazing. Now, one thing that losing this game today does for you guys is you have to be really careful for the remainder of the season because right now it's the Bills and the Steelers that are really vying for that top spot in the AFC. Next team down is going to be the Texans, and I just don't see there any way that they get there. So the Steelers, that would be a surprise if they finish above mine and your team. That would
they still got 5 divisional games, so that they've got a really tough stretch.
But let's talk about Kansas City's rest of the year stretch because it's not super easy by any means because you have a couple of divisional games too. So you get the Panthers and the Raiders next. Those are 2 great bounce back games. Like those are 2 games where you can probably put your foot on their throat and milk them for all they're worth. But then you play the Chargers. That's going to be a terrifying game. Now, it is at Arrowhead, so that's good. But it's going to be a tough game. And again, another divisional game. Then you have the Browns, the Texans, which we will be out live. So check that out on our YouTube channel. We will have a couple of vlogs coming out about our trip to Kansas City. It's our annual, 4th annual trip to Kansas City, something like that. And this is the first one where we'll actually be making a video of our trip up there. So tune in for that. And then you get the Steelers. And then last game of the year is the divisional matchup with the Denver Broncos, a rematch after you guys played them super close just a week ago. Are you concerned about the rest of the year? Are you worried that you guys may lose out of the first seed? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the 1 seed's not a given for sure. I am a little concerned about that because the Chargers and the Broncos are the main reason. I'm actually not even that concerned about the Texans because their offensive line. I'm not worried about that, especially if the Chiefs get Omenihu back. But yeah, it's going to be tough. I think the Chargers could beat us. It wouldn't surprise me if they did. The Broncos could beat us that last week. So absolutely, the 1 seed is anything from locked up. That's why this game was so important because this would have really put you in a secure position. But we saw last year the Chiefs can go on the road, win away in the playoffs. But also, and not to take this is not a shot at Buffalo. We've seen Buffalo have some random games where they'll lose to the Texans or get blown out or try to lose to the Colts or something. So it's possible both teams still stumble down the stretch. I'm sure both teams are going to lose again. I don't think either team is going to win out. Although Buffalo is on a hot streak right now, so we'll see. I think both teams are in a good space, and they just have to keep their head down and try to survive this whole injury bug they're dealing with. Everybody's dealing with.
Well, today, the 3rd best team in the AFC, the Pittsburgh Steelers, defeated the Baltimore Ravens in what was kind of a really disappointing game from Lamar Jackson and the Ravens alike. It looked like they were not the same Ravens team that they had been at any point throughout this year. And I don't know if it was just the Steelers' defense that's just so good. I don't know what it was, but it was a terrific win for the Steelers. They needed this. They're bumping up. We just talked about it last segment. They're bumping up that seeding in the AFC. They're the 3rd seed right now. So there's a chance that at the 3 weeks from now, we're looking over our shoulder and seeing the Steelers ahead of either the Bills or the Chiefs. Now, not super likely, but it's possible. So Tristan, my question to you is, do you think that the Steelers are good enough to make a real Super Bowl run?
I'm going to say yes. I think that the Steelers are a legit Super Bowl contender. Just without me giving my reasoning, do you agree or disagree?
I agree.
The offense isn't great. I know that, but the defense is truly spectacular. I made this chart just to compare. Points a game, offense 12th, defense 2nd. Yards allowed a game versus yards gained a game, 18th for offensively, 8th defensively. Pass yards a game, 26th offensively, obviously not their strong suit, 19th defensively, that's their weak spot in both categories. Rush yards a game, 8th offensively, and 4th defensively. They are top 10 in 3 of the defensive categories and, not terrible in 2 of the offensive categories. So I feel like the defense is good enough to overcome the offense because I don't think the offense is as bad as the stats make it out to be. Russell Wilson is effective. Yes, he was bad today, but so was Lamar Jackson. This was one of those divisional games, gets ugly. Okay, whatever, defensive game. Russell Wilson's ability to throw the deep ball, the 50-50 ball to Pickens has changed this offense. Put on top of that, Najee Harris is having a borderline career year right now. I know he's had 1,000 yards every year, but he looks the best he's ever looked in the NFL just based on the eye test, in my opinion. I think this is a team that with this defense, with Mike Tomlin, we've seen what Tomlin's been able to do year in and year out with me and you playing quarterback. So now say what you want about Russell Wilson, but you've got him starting. It is serviceable. Plus you have Justin Fields there if you need to, input that aspect, the running into the quarterback position. On top of that, you're having a similar thing in the NFL as you are with college. I don't think there's a dominant team this year. I really don't. Kansas City has a lot of weaknesses. Buffalo, at times they look dominant, but at times they look like they could get, they got blown out by the Texans. So no team has really taken the mantle. Some people thought the Ravens did. We'll get into them in a minute. And Pittsburgh handled them, and they look terrible. Since it's just so wide open, and Pittsburgh has put themselves in a position where they can possibly get a 1 seed, it's feasible, although unlikely because they've got a lot of tough games left. I think they're a Super Bowl contender. Will they win it? I wouldn't bet my money on it, but it would not surprise me if this team ended up in the AFC Championship game. It just wouldn't.
Yeah, to me, this game really came down to playmakers on both sides of the ball. The fact was that the Ravens had no playmakers step up today. I mean, Derrick Henry was held to under 100 yards.
Yes.
He pretty much had the same stats as Najee Harris today, minus a touchdown for Henry. Lamar Jackson didn't step up. Zay Flowers missed some throws that were right in his chest. Defensively, they didn't step up. When you look at the Pittsburgh side of the ball, you have guys like Najee, which whether you want to admit it or not, like you said, he's having a career year. He's consistent. He's one of the most consistent running backs in all of football right now. He's running hard. Like you said, Wilson is serviceable.
Do you think the way they're playing, though, doing that defensive style, do you think it's sustainable into late the season? Because I kind of think, and I know you'll agree with me here, is like once you get into January and playing cold weather games, playing defense and running the ball is usually what wins championships. And I think Russell Wilson is still good enough in this offense to do what he needs to do for them to win playoff games.
Look, when you got Patrick Queen making 10 tackles today, the defense is good enough to hold up against any football team right now. Yeah. Like you said, the deficiency is all the offensive side of the ball. If they want to go the long stretch, and the reason why I don't think that they could get the 1 seed away from Buffalo or Kansas City right now is because the offensive deficiencies. It's these guys, like I know Pickens is coming into his best year, and he's pretty much unlocked a new level of football play.
Right. First time he's had a confident quarterback.
Right. And I don't think that this team offensively is good enough to have the longevity to sustain a top seed, the first seed in the AFC. Do I think they could finish third? Absolutely.
Here's what I just want to throw at you. I know these are maybe not excellent teams. Take away this game against the Ravens where they scored 18. Their past few games, Commanders, they scored 28. Giants, they scored 26. Jets, they scored 37. Raiders, they scored 32. And then you had the Cowboys game where they scored 17 earlier in the year. But, I mean, they're getting close to 30 points the past 4 weeks in a row up until this Ravens game, which is a divisional game. Ravens have typically had a bad defense. So that's why, even though those were against some subpar defenses, I understand that. It just feels like the defense can keep them in any game, and you never know when that 50-50 ball to Pickens is coming over the top to get you for a touchdown. Because if Russell Wilson puts it in the same zip code as Pickens, it's a touchdown.
Out of the 7 games left on their schedule, how many of those do you think are divisional matchups?
5 or 6.
5.
I knew they were all backloaded. So
that's the scary part for the Steelers for me.
But they've done what they needed to do and build up the equity beforehand. Because we said, remember the preseason, we talked about it and we said, hey, they got all their division games late, so they're screwed unless they, end up with 7 or 8 wins before week 11. They've done that part.
Yeah, they could afford to lose a couple of games. But with having 5 divisional matchups, like how many would you be, as a Steelers fan and then also as like a betting man, how many of those games would you be okay with losing and still feel confident in the Steelers making a good playoff run?
I think you could lose 2 for sure. Are we talking about the divisional games or the total games left?
The divisional games.
Divisional games, you could lose 2 because right now you have a 2-game lead on Baltimore.
Yeah.
And you've won 5 in a row. Baltimore seems to be kind of more of a roller coaster. So you've got a 2-game lead on Baltimore plus the head-to-head. I know you have to play them again, but assuming they just split with the Browns, split with the Bengals, and then even if they lose the Ravens game, even if that was 3, I think they'll be okay. The scary part too, though, the non-divisional games, Chiefs-Eagles.
Yeah, they
do not get a break the rest of the season.
No, they don't. But I will say up to this point, the 2 losses from the Steelers, which would be Dallas and the Colts, are better than the 2 losses from the Ravens. So the Ravens have lost to the Raiders, the Chiefs, and now the Steelers. So and the Browns. I forgot they lost against the Browns too.
Yeah, so exactly.
The Ravens are a 4-loss team now.
Right.
Where we thought the Ravens would be is where the Steelers are right now.
Correct. Like the Steelers in the Steelers in the driver's seat to win the division, as long as they don't collapse, which they could because they got a lot of good teams. But
as far as NFL as a picture, or the AFC as a whole picture, is this the biggest surprise in any single division that you would be that you were expecting? Like, would this be the Steelers finishing atop this division way above the Ravens, and the Ravens maybe even dropping down, below the Bengals by the time the end of the season comes? Who knows?
Yes.
Like, would this be the biggest surprise?
Absolutely. I thought they would make the playoffs because they always do, but I thought they would, and I've said this multiple times, I thought they would do what they always do, barely squeak in with 10 wins, get beaten the first game. They are one of the better teams in the AFC because of the defense, and they just, when you have the great defense you always do, and then you just inject competent quarterback play on most days, I know Russ was bad today, but I mean, that can take you a long way, especially when there's not an elite team.
All right, so I know we've touched on the Ravens a little bit, but I want to just bring this up to you. So the Ravens fall to 7-4. They're 2-2 in their last 4 games, and they have some pretty terrible losses when you look at teams like the Raiders and the Browns. What's your opinion of the Ravens at this point in the season?
The Ravens aren't as good as the media has been trying to tell you all season. That's the bottom line of this. Are they still a really talented team?
It's the rat poison.
Yeah, but I've felt like I was kind of taking crazy pills some of this season because I just keep hearing everybody tell me, they even did this like week 3 and 4. They're like, the Ravens, if the Ravens and the Chiefs played each other right now. I'm like, well, they played each other week 1 and the Chiefs won. Chiefs won that ball game. Like, we were literally in a scenario where the Chiefs were undefeated and the Ravens had 2 or 3 losses, and people were like, if they played today, I'm taking it's like, guys, we saw it 6 weeks ago. Okay. Like, I know it came down to the end. That's what happens in the NFL against close teams. I like the Ravens. The Ravens are, though, what I thought they would be. They lost a lot of crucial members to the defense last year, and guys that had career years aren't replicating that. Like, the defense has been horrible, let's just say, absolutely horrible. Today, they were good. Okay, great, but Lamar was bad today. Adding Derrick Henry has been good. Could that be the difference in the playoffs? Yes. I, though, am worried about the defense because I just don't think you can win a bunch of playoff games or make a deep run with that bad of a defense. I really don't. And the thing hanging over everything, the one thing we're kind of just avoiding, everybody's tiptoeing scared to talk about, Lamar is kind of a choke artist in the playoffs. He just has been. One day, I do believe he will shake that. Peyton Manning couldn't win in the playoffs until he did. But we have to keep that in the back of our mind. If they didn't do it last year, this is a far inferior team to the Ravens of last year, even with Derrick Henry. I think the deficiencies at defense, the up and down play, it just seems like, I know the Ravens are one of the better teams in the AFC. It sounds like I'm clowning on them. I'm not. But they are not as good as the media and all these talking heads wanted to anoint them. They are very good. They have a lot of issues to work through, but I still don't trust them in a big playoff game at the end of the season. Do you? Because I don't.
No, I concluded after, when they lost to the Chiefs the first game out, 20-27, I was like, okay, whatever. But when you come and then you lose against the Raiders 28-23, that's when I knew at that point that, okay, well, this is what we've done. We do this almost every year. We've overblown the Ravens, the Lamar Jackson saga and everything, but it's just all been inflated. And at this point, I am comfortable with saying that I think that they are definitely the second best team in the AFC North. We found that out today once they lost to the Steelers. But there's a chance that they could fall to number 3. And I know you may say, like, well, Ryan, how does that happen? Well, you look at the rest of their schedule, and they have teams like the Browns, a divisional matchup, the Steelers, the Texans, the Giants, the Eagles, the Chargers. Like, they have a tough schedule left. And if they lost to a team like the Steelers today, and by the way, the loss was 18-16, the game felt more lopsided than that. It just felt like Baltimore just played so sloppy.
You're 100% right. And Pittsburgh did too. There was a point where Pittsburgh's literally about to score to go up 2 scores late in the game, and Russell Wilson throws the most incomprehensible interception you can imagine. Like, just has a Will Levis moment. Otherwise, the game's not as close. I know that happened. And then Ravens throw a pick. That stuff like that happens. But my point is, I agree with everything you said. The Ravens, they've lost 4 games. You assume like you need 10 wins minimum to get into the playoffs in the AFC. I'm not saying the Ravens aren't going to make the playoffs. If they lose 3 more games, they're at 10-7. I don't think they'll lose 3 more games, but I think 2 more losses is on the table, right? They can't seem to get a good winning streak together. It seems like they win 1 or 2 and then they'll drop 1. And maybe that's a little bit more normal, but to me, it just feels like they're struggling to find their identity.
Yeah, and I think going into next week playing the Chargers, like you said it earlier, that you think the Chargers may be the best defense in the entire football league, and there's a chance that they are. So you mean to tell me that a team that has a better defense than the Steelers that you played, and then also they're better offensively than the Steelers, do you think that there's a chance they lose against the Chargers next week? Because if they do, then they still have another game before their bye week. So that's one saving grace is they do have the bye week 14, but you still got the Chargers and the Eagles to go through before you can take a rest.
There's a chance they lose to the Chargers, but just to play devil's advocate, they also went and hung 160 on Denver, who also has one of the best defenses. That's what I'm saying. It's like you try to make sense of the team. It is inconsistent. It's like what you used to say about the Jaguars, but with more high variance. Their lows are never as low as the Jaguars, and their highs are, oh my God, they will beat any team. Like the way they played against Denver, they would beat any team in the league. Like they would have just stomped anybody. They stomped Buffalo. Like it wasn't even close. So, and then they go and lose to the Raiders and stomp Denver and lose to the Steelers. It's just, they're inconsistent. That's okay right now, but I hope they're trying to work and find out who they are, because that's the big thing for me, just to bring it home. I don't know what their identity is. Lamar and Derrick Henry.
I don't think they do.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to just carry you enough to get a Super Bowl. And if you're the Ravens at this point, you've got the MVPs, you've got the play. It's Super Bowl or bust. That's what you're going for.
The Packers defeated the Chicago Bears at the Chicago Bears on field today in a nail-biter finish, a blocked field goal. As far as the weight of the moment, this was max. Like, you are maxed out today. And the Packers defense, they stepped up. But even though they got the win, even though it was a divisional rival, is it fair to say that something still feels a little bit off about this Packers team?
That's not only fair to say, it's just absolutely evident to say. You know me, I was really high on the Packers this year. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. I thought Jordan Love would continue his climb. I thought he would ascend into a better version of himself, and I thought the defense would improve. Defense has improved. Jordan Love has regressed. There's no other way to say it. Yes, he makes spectacular plays. He also makes boneheaded decisions sometimes, and he just can't seem to get away from it. The big thing that bit them today, Ryan, they kind of should have won this game comfortably. Like, Chicago's not a good football team. Green Bay's a good football team. I understand. Everyone, hold on, time out. Hold on. I understand division rivals. It doesn't matter. It's like the Iron Bowl in college football. Doesn't matter what your records are. Division rivals, it's tough games. I get it. But this was a corner TV game for me most of the game. Like, I had to go back and rewatch the condensed version before we recorded tonight because it was corner. Because I just was like, okay, It felt like Green Bay was about to start pulling away at any moment. And then you look and it's like, they're not, and they're not, and they're not. And then at the end, it's like, Chicago's going to win this game. Holy crap. But turnovers and not being able to finish drives. There was a red zone interception from Jordan Love, which was just unacceptable. And then they went for it on 4th and goal in the red zone, and he didn't have anybody open. He ran and tried to scramble, and he got stuffed. I'm not going to rehash it too much, but he is so reckless. It's just not sustainable. And I know some of the way he pushes the ball downfield is what really gives your offense power. But and maybe there's not a way to clean it up, because we keep saying every week you got to clean it up, but they have to hit it home. They have to focus on this.
I think that may be coming out in the play calling, because Jordan Love only threw for 17 attempts today.
Yes.
So,
and a lot of them were screens and at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, so it seems like after the bye week now, they're starting to rein him back a little bit.
If I can get his pass chart before I edit that episode, I'll put it in right here just to show you, because I remember watching it. There were multiple screens, and like he did push the ball downfield at time. But to your point, it did feel like they were trying to kind of protect themselves from his variance.
Right, and I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not. Obviously, I don't get paid the big bucks to make that decision, but just from a viewer, armchair quarterback, point of view, it seems that like he needs that confidence boost, but to get to that confidence boost, you're going to have to battle through a whole lot of mistakes to get him comfortable and back at it, because ever since the injury, he hasn't been quite himself like he was early in the season. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say. And even when we brought this topic up, I was thinking, I wasn't going to research or do a graphic for this one, but I was thinking like, yeah, their offense just isn't looking good. And I went and looked at their numbers, and their offensive numbers are good. I was like, but that doesn't match what I'm seeing with my eyes. I'm watching their games. I watch every snap.
Yeah.
I pay for NFL Plus. I go back and watch what happens. Then I looked at their stats the last 3 games. So let me show you this graphic. This is comparing their offense overall season ranking, and then just their offense the last 3 games. Yards a game. Season, 3rd overall. Last 3 games, 10th. Pass yards a game, 7th. Last 3 games, 12th. Rush yards a game. That seems what they're consistent at. 3rd in the NFL in rush yards a game on average. Over the last 3 games, though, it's 11th. Points a game, 9th overall in the season. Okay, solid. 16th over the last 3 games. This chart right here proves that I do not, in fact, have lying eyes. The offense has been regressing the past couple weeks. The defense has been improving the past couple weeks, and they're keeping them in games. But when you have such a low, wiggle room, when you're 16th in points a game over the past 3 weeks, you're not able to score a lot of points. So when you have these opportunities in the red zone, you have to take advantage of it. As I said today, 2 red zone attempts ended with no points. 1 was a turnover. 1, they went for it on 4th and goal instead of kicking the field goal. A pass wasn't there. He tried to scramble and got stuffed. We could debate the going for it instead of kicking the field goal. In the moment, I didn't really have too big a problem with it. Maybe I need to rewatch it. But you've got to find a way to finish out these drives and just limit mistakes. Particularly, to me, it's the red zone turnovers. If you're turning the ball over at the 40, at the 50, pushing it downfield, I can live with that, dude. That's fine. But when we get in the red zone, like Matt LaFleur's almost got to go grab the face mask and say, we are leaving with points. It's like, have you seen that clip of Denzel Washington talking about the Oscars? He's like, I'm leaving with something. He says, I'm leaving with something. That's what I'd be telling Jordan Love. Hey, we're leaving with something out of this red zone trip. Something. 3, 7, I don't care. We're getting points.
Well, Chicago, gonna Chicago. Even when things are going good, they take a turn for the worse. It's funny that, and I'll get to the question in just a second, but I want to interject this. You and I were just talking about the Bears last week on the phone. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
And we were talking about the organization being similar to the Cowboys with Jerry Jones. Like, we just think it's a problem from top down because you keep changing out these first-round picks at quarterback, and you still get the same outcome.
You change out coaching staffs too, yeah.
You've got a great defense, you like top 5, top 7 defense, but you have one of the worst offenses in the entire football league. I think like PFF has them like tied for 27th right now. It's terrible. It is awful. If you're a Bears fan, you're unfortunately accustomed to this type of thing. But did this performance today give you any hope for the Bears?
No, because it's the Bears. It doesn't, even though it should, it doesn't because it's the Bears. Because, yeah, you're going to see moments of this, but I am at the point with Chicago. me and you both said pump the brakes on the Caleb Williams hype train. Like people had him going to the playoffs and stuff. We were like, no. Me and you both took the under in the Vegas things we did. We were like, because it's a rookie quarterback. I did think they would be all right, but we said it. Go back and look at our preseason videos. Matt Eberflus is still the head coach. Why are you bringing in a rookie quarterback and retaining Eberflus? It made no sense. If you're going to start over, then start over. And me and you both said, well, if he's going to be the head coach, I can't have any faith that they're going to be better. And that is the case. I will say, Caleb Williams, this was the best game of his NFL career, by far. Maybe not statistically. I know he's had better statistical games, but what he did today was actually impressive. Part of that is thanks to whoever was calling the plays. They fired Shane Waldron. The OC was finally giving Caleb some layups. That's been one of the things. Rookie quarterback, hey, give him some screens and stuff. Get the ball out early. Get him some confidence. You saw a lot of screens to his receivers, a lot of running the football with swift, short passes, trying to get the ball out quick. And then on the plays where he didn't get the ball out quick, some of them due to him not seeing the field well because he had some open guys, he took off and ran and extended multiple drives with his legs, which is something he did in college. And it looked good. This looked like the college Caleb Williams. The final drive of the game, Caleb was spectacular. He was spectacular. Him and Rome Odunze. There was a 4th down play, and he threw a kind of a deep pass to the right on a comeback to Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze made a great play on it to catch it, but it was a good throw. That drive, he made multiple big throws and put them in a position to win the game, and then the field goal was blocked. But before the field goal was blocked, they ran the football first down. They didn't have any timeouts. They had one timeout left. They ran the football. 30 seconds left when the play was over. So it's 2nd down. You've got one timeout, and there's 30 seconds. Eberflus just let the clock wind down to 1 and called a timeout when he could have easily lined up and ran another ISO up the middle and get a couple more yards. There's a chance you could have gotten 2 more runs off up the middle, at least 1, maybe 2. And instead, he just sat there, let the clock wind down, and then called a timeout. Would another 4 to 6 yards have changed it and you not had the field goal blocked? Probably not, but I don't know, maybe. Regardless of that, it's coaching malpractice, and that right there, that sequence of events, after your quarterback has been fantastic, looks like the number 1 draft pick, the Heisman winner. The coach completely fumbles end-of-game management, and then your special teams finds a way to let you down and have a field goal blocked. That is the Chicago Bears. Maybe Caleb Williams will end up playing like this consistently, but ultimately, and I'm sorry, Chicago fans, ultimately the Bears organization will fail this young man because it's what they do to every player, every coach, everyone that comes in the doors of that building. That's a fact. And until I see otherwise, that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah, that is the DNA of the Chicago Bears. That is just who they are. That's who they've always been. And that's who they'll continue to be for a while. I mean, you and I were even going back and figuring out when was the best Bears offense. And I think we had to go back to the Cutler years before we found a decent offense, right? So I think this has more problems than just the players on the field because they have playmakers. Swift looks great this year. DJ Moore is pretty good. Odunze's great. Caleb Williams under Thomas Brown, which, by the way, Thomas Brown was the passing coordinator. They elevated him up to offensive coordinator.
Thank you for that.
After they fired
Waldron.
And this guy also was the Panthers' offensive coordinator last year, so not anything to hold your hat on too much.
Right.
But
a Northern organization, how much can you judge the coaches there?
Exactly. So there was an article that came out before the game started that Bleacher Report, I believe it was, and it said that the offensive coordinator, Thomas Brown, said that they were going to kind of go back to basics for Caleb Williams, and it seemed to work today.
So that's what I said. I didn't know they said that, but just watching the tape, that's what they did. That's what I was saying earlier. The screens, the runs, getting the ball out, getting him some early confidence, make him feel comfortable out back there. I mean, I'm not a fucking OC, Ryan. It's not rocket science to figure out how to kind of manage a rookie quarterback.
Yeah. I'm glad you put that little asterisk in there that you're not an OC.
Well, I know I know it's up for debate, but
well, people were starting to wonder why you're on this show. But no, I will say that, and before we sound like we're kind of boosting the Bears at all, because I still think inevitably they are going to fail this season because of coaching all the way up to front office to owner. I think it's just all trash. they need a rebuild season in the office. You know, like that's where they need their rebuild, because the players, they ain't the problem.
But so, okay, you're right and you're wrong on that. To an extent, you're actually kind of just right on both. Ryan Poles.
You want to just restart all that? Because
Ryan Poles has been a good GM as far as getting talent. He has done a good job of drafting, making trades, getting talent. But
we can leave him then.
But hold on. He made a crucial error. He is the one that okayed and decided to keep Eberflus.
Well, I mean, everybody has a bad Tuesday.
But when you have a guy that's doing a good job bringing in players, and then you make that decision, I'm not saying I would fire Ryan Poles. I actually think he's a good GM, but it could be something where he doesn't survive simply because of that decision. I don't know. But then you end up in the same thing where you just get more guys coming in. So if anything, it might be wise to just try and stick with Ryan Poles. I don't know. What do you do with Chicago, man?
Well, you know they're going to finish at the end of their division this year for sure. Like, I don't think anybody in this in the NFL analysis team or reporting team would ever predict that the Bears would finish over the Vikings, the Packers, or the Lions. Like, there's no way. So, look, we may get to see it play out next year where they get another first-round quarterback and ruin his career, and we'll just keep playing this same old cycle over and over again.
Okay, Ryan, I know we didn't pay super close attention to the Chargers-Bengals game because we started recording this in the second half, but you don't have to be Nostradamus. You don't have to be a football wizard to see the Bengals lost. They're now 4-7. Their season is over. They are done. Joe Burrow was excellent this year. He was having an MVP type season. The defense was horrible. You know, there's going to be plenty of time to do a post-mortem. Is it personnel? What's the decision? My question to you, and because I don't know, after this year, do you make wholesale changes and say, okay, Zach Taylor's got to go. We got to make changes. We got to do things? Because we know that the Bengals are a notoriously cheap franchise. Like, they don't like paying people. They don't like bringing in free agents. They don't like paying their players. They haven't paid Jamar Chase yet. Where do you think they go after this year? Are they in a position to where you think they can say, that was just a one-off, we'll get him next year? Or do you think this kind of season should cause some deep self-reflection? If you were running the team, how do you view that? Because I don't know. I don't know how to think about it.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely a year because you have a chance. Like, if the Browns somehow figure out a way to win a few more games and come really close to beating you out in this division, I don't think that'll happen.
No.
But my point being, like, if the Browns finish, with 4 wins and the Bengals finish with 5 or 6,
the fact is that you're that close to bottom. It's
too close for comfort because the Ravens and the Steelers are going to walk away with this division. Zach Taylor has moments of excellence, and I don't think those moments of excellence are enough to keep him around. I think that if there's got to be a fall guy, he's probably the number 1 candidate. But you're on year 4 of Joe Burrow right now. Like, Burrow's been in here since 2020.
You did make it to a Super Bowl, though. You made it to a Super Bowl 1 year.
But since then, it has been a downhill spiral. So what has changed? And what are you willing to do to fix that, to still have this type of team that you have? Because you still have T. Higgins. You still have a guy like Chase Brown. Obviously, you got Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, one of the deadliest duos in the game. But this defense has got to be fixed. Do you just make the fall guy the D cord and say, hey, we're going to get rid of him and bring a new one in?
But the problem is we know Lou Anarumo is a great defensive coordinator. We've seen,
so then what is
it's not
the
like
problem?
He just forgot to be a D coordinator. So, I think the problem at that point, and I don't know, because this is something this is one of those things you'll have to go and grind all 22 tape and look at. This isn't an easy question to answer.
Is it just talent deficiency on the defense? Is it a poor free agency moves? Is it all that combined?
I think that's a big, big part of it, because we know Lou Anarumo can coach. Zach Taylor, even though and you know me, there was a time where I thought they should have fired him sooner. And yeah, you look, they went 10-7, made the Super Bowl. Next year, 12-4. Lost in the AFC Championship game. Then year after 9-8, and then this year they're 4-5. So it's every year's getting a tick worse. And that's the thing. Regardless of what you think, it's going in the wrong direction. My problem with Zach Taylor, because he's the offensive guy, is I've always thought their offense has been bland. Despite that, they're productive on offense this year. Joe Burrow is having a comeback player type of the year, but it doesn't matter because their defense is giving up 40 points a game. This is where I am a little conflicted. I do think it's fair to say Zach Taylor should go. I think you can get a better offensive coach for Joe Burrow. Like, if I was Cincinnati, I would be calling Ben Johnson, the Detroit offensive coordinator, tomorrow and be like, you want to come coach Burrow and run the team? They would immediately improve. They just absolutely would. But even if you do all that, I don't know how much it gets better because of the fact that the owners and the franchise are cheap, and I don't think they're going to be willing to pay top dollar for players that can come in and make a difference on defense.
Well, then they're not going to win football games.
Yes.
2 stats I just found by doing a quick Google search. It's this new website called Google. Pulls up a lot of facts really quick.
Probably won't last.
The Bengals are 1-6 in one-score games. Joe Burrow, this season, 3,028 yards, 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
The Bengals are 4-7, and this tweet here says, like, make it make sense. And I can't. Like, it's obviously the defense has lost these football games for this team, but it's bigger than that because your point, Lou knows how to coach defense. Like, that's not a question. So we got to go through the weeds here and see, like, do we need to spend more money on the defense? Answer's probably yes. But also, is Zach Taylor setting a good precedent for this locker room? Like, is he the coach that everybody wants to play for? And I think the answer to that is no. I don't think this team is behind Zach Taylor. One thing I'll say, like, about the Buffalo Bills, as much as I don't like Sean McDermott sometimes, like, the team seems to be completely 100% behind him.
Absolutely.
They would lay in a line and let him walk across them to not get his feet wet. You know, like, that
Yes.
is how much they like Sean McDermott.
It's true.
And I think they would just push Zach Taylor into the water. You know, like, I think that's the equivalency of a bad coach versus a good coach who makes bad moves. Like, there's two different levels of bad coaching. Zach Taylor's just an all around, I think, bad football coach for this organization. He could go somewhere else maybe and be decent, you know. Dan Quinn seems to be doing it pretty good at the Commanders. So maybe Zach Taylor needs a change of scenery. I don't know what it is. But I think something's got to change. I don't think it changes this year. I think they're too far in this year to make any big changes.
But at the end of the year, you don't go...
At the end of the year, yeah. I'm just saying, like, in the mid-season, nothing happened.
No,
I don't think Zach Taylor's gone mid-season.
That would be stupid.
Well, it's not even mid-season anymore, I guess, but gosh, It's not even mid-season anymore.
No, I understand.
Sad.
I understand your point, but and I also kind of agree, whether the main issue is Zach Taylor or not, it's kind of like the whole, you're the CEO of the company. Well, maybe it wasn't your fault, but it's falling on somebody, man. It's falling on somebody, and it's when I know, hey, you made it to the Super Bowl. Great. And you lost that game, but you made it. But we know that's because of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. You know, 2 great draft picks. That literally, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase single-handedly changed their franchise. I don't want to completely downplay Zach Taylor, but I think you would agree with me when I say at times it feels like they have won in spite of Zach Taylor's offense, not because of it. It feels like they have been able to overcome it, in part thanks to Lou Anarumo's defense in the playoff games against Kansas City. You know, when they made it to the Super Bowl, it was the defense that did it. When you look at their personnel on defense, I know we got to wrap up. One of the big moves they made was bringing in Geno Stone, who had a big year last year, but other than that, he had been terrible, and they were really banking on him being good at free safety. He's been terrible. PFF has him ranked 84th out of 86 safeties in the league. The other safety, Von Bell, he has not been great. Maybe not as bad as PFF says. The line, okay, you know Hendrickson is good. Jenkins hasn't been good. Hubbard has not been as good as he has been in the past. Hubbard seems to be regressing. And then you got the corners, Cam Taylor-Britt, 86th out of 109th on PFF. And take PFF with a grain of salt. I'm just telling you, when you look at the personnel, there are glaring issues. When you have those, it makes a big deal, and it's hard for your offense to overcome it. It still feels like those issues don't warrant how bad the defense has been, though.
Well, guys, that's week 11 in the books. It is done, over with, pending the Monday night football game. Everybody tune in to watch that. It's going to be a pretty good game, I guess. Maybe.
Not going to be.
Probably not. Nico Collins is back. That's something to look forward to. Like, who doesn't like to watch Nico play? Because CJ Stroud is a much better quarterback. The hot dogs taste better when Nico Collins is in the stadium.
It's weird.
We'll find it out because we'll see him play live. Lord willing, he doesn't get hurt or anything, but we'll see him play live on December 21st in Kansas City at Arrowhead. Anyway, week 11's in the book. Next week, week 12, There's like 6 teams on bye next week. It's crazy. It's like all my fantasy teams are on bye next week. I think the whole teams are on bye. A lot of these teams having these late buys, it's either really good for the team or really bad. Hopefully for the Bills, which are one of the teams on bye next week, it'll be good because we'll get some players back like Milano and Keon Coleman. We need them. We need Milano so bad, but I feel like he's hurt at least 80% of the year every year.
Yeah, this has been going on. I think he was hurt. I was born in 95, and he was having surgery.
He was injured that year.
Yeah, 96, yeah. You mentioned us going to Kansas City. We are going to go watch the Texans and the Chiefs game. If you like what we do here, subscribe to the channel, like the videos, tell your friends about it. 2 idiots covering one sport with humor, with levity, trying to be honest, not take ourselves too seriously. When we go on the Kansas City trip, we're going to try something we've never done before. We're actually going to just make a vlog of us going on the trip. We're going to post it on the YouTube channel. It might be like a week after the game before it gets uploaded. But if you're interested in that kind of stuff, check it out. Tell your friends. Help support the channel. We are trying to grow it here for you guys and for us because we have so much fun doing it. For Ryan, I am Tristan. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the week. Be safe, everyone. See you soon. Goodbye.